So I have said that ISO stands for International Organization for Standardization, and this ISO is the body responsible for establishing and implement various standards across a wide range of proprietary, industrial, and commercial applications. I have said in the previous video. Now, it is saying that this ISO was actually its headquarter is based in Geneva in Switzerland, and ISO was formed in 1947. That is the year when we have independence, and the main goal of ISO is with the goals to develop global standards, some global environmental standards set up for the industries, for the engineering process. So normally ISO's headquarter is at Geneva in Switzerland, and it is formed in 1947. The main goal of ISO is to develop some environmentally global standards. That means this standard will be not only used in particular country or in particular region, it will be applicable to all over the world for the industrial and in the engineering process. Since then, it has grown to become world's largest and most reputable institution for internationally recognized standard, boasting over 11,000 standards. So normally there are ISO has somehow about 11,000 standard, and one of the standard family is 14,000. Now within this 14,000 standard protocol, better to not to say protocol, within these 14,000 standard rules there are subsections also, like 14,001, 14,002, and each ISO standard have mentioned there what type of things has to be controlled and regulated separately. So of the 11,000 plus, so there is now more than 11,000 ISO standards. About 350 are related to the environmental management system. So out of the 11,000 plus, that means more than 11,000 standards have been set up by the International Organization for Standardization. Out of them, only 350 are related with the environmental management system, though not all of them are ISO 14,000. That means within the ISO 14,000, it has been mentioned in your syllabus because ISO 14,000 mainly deals with to check the environment, to control the environment. You'll see here ISO standards are not mandatory. Now it has not been said that you have to follow the ISO standard. Still you will see in every food items, in every company, you will see in the back label, you will see in the back, at the back you will see it is written ISO certified company. That means what? It means they follow the ISO protocol, they follow the rules set up by, they follow the standards, the environmental standards set up by the ISO, and they are reducing the pollutants actually in the environment. So ISO standard are not mandatory. They are developed in accordance with the market demands in order to maximize availability and adoption, and are usually developed by technical committees within the large body of the ISO. So ISO standard is not strictly that you have to follow ISO. Okay, there are many companies which are not following the ISO, but still we buy those things. But it's actually a, you can say, the market demands, because publicly when they are buying some product, they will not buy such product which is causing in polluted to the environment. They will not buy that product, they will not buy that product from that company which is making pollution actually. So according to the market demands, to maximize the availability to adopt, and they are usually developed by technical communities, that how we can achieve our goals, and at the same time we will make profit, at the same time we will also try to uh, minimize the pollution, or you can say the minimize the things that are set up, that are led by the ISO environmental standards. This number is an identifier. So when we write ISO something else, okay, like ISO 100, ISO 1500, so it is a identifier, as in the case it refers to the broad family of environmental management standards ISO 14000. So ISO 14000 mainly, its main part is based on EMS, environmental management system, and also environmental auditing. So by these two things that ISO 14000 family works on, and inside this ISO 14000 there is also other environmental standard like ISO 14001, ISO 14002, in this way. So here 14000 refer to the standards for setting up and maintaining an EMS. So here only the 14000 means what are the standards, what are the environmental standards that should be set up and maintaining our uh, environmental management system. Over 300,000 organizations and business in 171 countries around the globe are certified to an ISO 14000 standard. So there are about 300,000 countries, sorry, 300,000 organizations that are following the ISO 14000 standard, and they are certified also. That means it is proved that they are not causing too much harm to the environment, at the same time they are making profit to their industries. Okay, now there are number of important concepts at the core of the ISO 14000 family of standards, including plan, do, study, act cycle, continuous improvement, and broader incentives for environmental maintenance and management. So there are many topics related with this ISO 14000, and that concepts are plan, do, study, act, cycle. I will discuss them after the after saying about the EMS, environmental management system. We will discuss about the plan, do, study, act cycle, which is the main part of the ISO 14000 environmental standards. Continuous improvement and broader incentives is something like encourages us, okay, like company give incentives, why? So that we are more able to focus to work with the company, right? Just like that, environmental standards set up by ISO 14000 also give some broader incentives to the like, for example, what type of incentives I can say, I'm not talking about a company level. Suppose in Scotland, I think in Scotland people were asked to dispose their garbage, dispose their plastics, okay, in the following dustbins. Okay, there are three types of dustbins, I think there are. One dustbin is used for keeping the biomedical waste, colored in some green or red, they have a code actually. Another dustbin is used to keep the non-recyclable products, and another dustbin is kept for the recyclable products. So some intensive incentives has been given by the government of Scotland in that area, that whoever will put maximum number of I think in per kg or per ton has been mentioned, they will get some incentives, they will get some free ticket, family ticket, movie ticket, or this type of things they actually made by the government there in that area, so that people can encouragely they will help to clean the environment. Okay, in the same way, if we see in a company point of view, some broader incentives is given to the company, and for environmental maintenance and management. Now the main thing is, what is EMS, what is environmental management system. Environmental management system is a set of policies, is a set of procedures designed to help the organization in many ways. like it will helps to reduce the negative environmental impact. It will also improve the efficiency and operational effectiveness. So normally EMS or environmental management system, it is a set of some policies, some procedures which are normally designed so that organization can reduce the negative impact in the environment, and at the same time it will also improve their efficiency and their mode of operational effectiveness, not only to improve the environment but also to improve their production also. So just like quality management system and environmental management system is a set of guidelines for continuous improvement based on proven methods of business process management and optimization. Well, optimization means what is the best way, what is the more effective way in that situation, okay, or from that resource. So again I repeat, just like quality management system, environmental management system is a set of some guidelines so that we can continuously we can work on it and we can improve based on some methods of business process management, and we will optimize also. It is essentially a statement of what does EMS is going to do, how EMS is going to do it, who is going to do it, and where it will get done. These are main questions that arise in our minds also now, that what EMS or environmental management system going to do, and how that I have got a question that how EMS is going to do, what EMS is going to do, but how it's going to do it, how environmental management system going to do that thing, do that to get that goal, and who is going to do it and when it will get done. These are the main questions that we will that things in our mind now when we talk about environmental management system. So normally environmental management system is actually, you can say, it is made up of clearly defined policies, some rules has been set up, and some procedures. Not only that, some actionable steps has been mentioned, and well documented records of the responsibilities and accountabilities of all relevant personnel. So again I repeat, EMS is actually just like now EMS is also mentioned in ISO 14000. So EMS or environmental management system is made up of some clearly defined policy, some procedure, some actionable steps, and well documented records of the responsibilities and accountabilities of all relevant personnel. Now there are 6 core elements of an EMS, and that 6 core, the main elements of the EMS are environmental policy, planning, to put that plan into effect, that is implementation, study and correct, to again we continue with that study, that how we can able to manage, management review, and continuous improvement. So these are the 6 things which based on the EMS: environmental policy, planning, implementation, study and correct, management review, and continuous improvement. So let us see. I think you have understood what is EMS. EMS is normally a set of guidelines for continuous improvement, and it is based on proven methods of business processes management and optimization. So let us see that 6 elements which based on EMS. First is environmental policy. Environmental policy is a clearly written statement that outline our business objectives and targets. So the environmental policy are the set of rules, clearly defined rules, which outline to our business objectives and targets in the context of their environmental policy, and it includes principles on environmental sustainability as well as performance indicator relating to the EMS. So EMS or environmental management system, the main first process of the environmental management system is your environmental policy. In environmental policy, what they are saying, it is a clearly written statement that outline a business objectives and targets. So it shows that what is the objective of that business, of that company, what are the targets of that company, and in context of the environmental policy also, not causing harm to the environment, that also has to be mentioned there. It also includes principles on environmental sustainability as well as perform indicators relating to the EMS, right? Now, policy should be always clearly communicated both internally and externally and fully implemented. The policy that is set up by the EMS should be fully implemented. It should be clearly communicated between internally and externally to the company. Okay. Second is planning. Making a complete plan through the plans for implementing the EMS. To implement the EMS in that particular company or organization, we have to make complete plans. With clear through planning, organizations stand to assess the environmental impacts of all operations. By clear planning, organizations stand to assess the environmental impact of all operations. The purpose of planning is to develop a process for identifying compliance requirements. That means the agreements. The main purpose of planning is to develop a process so that we can identify the agreement requirements. What are the requirements which we need to agree, documenting the targets and objectives, and creating a plan for deployment. If it is not possible, then we have to deployment normally means to move from that place, okay, in order to here for the benefit of the environment actually. But at the same time, we will not only stop that work, but we will also try to use them in another way. Here deployment normally means to move from one position to the another. Here the company, I am referring to the company or organization within the same group. So in planning will help to make clearly to understand and make that organization to assess the environmental impacts. And the main purpose of planning is to develop a process for identifying compliance, that means the agreement, the requirements to make agreement, documenting targets and objectives, and creating a plan for deployment. If it is not possible, then we have to move and make our plan into effect. Then comes the third step, that is called implementation. In implementation, it is saying that after planning, this step involves execution of those plans. By making those plans, not only we have to make plans, but we have to put that plan into effect. So we have to execute those plans. This step will also incorporate adjustment and even building of new process to adapt the changing requirements. So this step is mainly involved to make some adjustment and even building of new processes. The process that we are going to follow, we have to according to our EMS rules setup, we have to follow that process and adapt to change requirements. If changing is required, we have to make that change, okay, for benefit of the environment. It is important that organization clearly define, document and communicate their implementation procedures for the purpose of training and compliance contingency. Now it's a, so it means in future also we have to follow that thing, okay, based on the situations. So the main important of this implementation is that organization will clearly define, it will document it, and will communicate their implementation procedure and the purpose, for the purpose of training and compliance contingency. Contingency normally means to to predict, not to predict, but just for that future event or circumstance which is possible but cannot be predicted through certainty, that has to be maintained. Well documented processes make also easier to improve upon those processes. Then is study and correct. So after implementing the most basic EMS, environmental management system, observe it how it function. After implementing, after putting that plan into effect, we have to study, we have to see, and we have to collect that information, and we have to rectify it also, we have to correct it also, and make corrections or optimizations as needed. These steps involve management of new and existing procedures to make sure that uh, to make sure that companies are normally making into profit. Also, at the same time, the EMS is also functioning as it should be. Organization will be benefit from establishing a system of documentation as well as conducting audit. I have said in model auditing that auditing is also should be done from that of that EMS. So this is about the fourth step, study and correct. Next is management review. Now this could really tie with the previous section. The fourth step that I have said, study and correct, it is related with that. We have to review them. After studying, we have to review that thing. This could really tie with the previous section, but it's importance to have distinguished review of the EMS conducted by management, and it makes sure that everything is functioning well with the scope of successful performance. So by reviewing, it is just as a formality that to make sure that that the environmental management system is working on that company. At the same time, the scope of that company is also achieving, making it successful performance it is doing. Management will be best positioned to access this kind of effectiveness. And the last is continuous improvement. Every EMS will utilize some principle of continuous improvement to enable the organization to optimize all aspects of the system. So every EMS, every environmental management system will utilize the principles, will utilize continuous improvement to allow organizations to optimize. Optimize mean, I have said, to make its best or most effective by using that situation or using that resource of that system. So in this way, your environmental management system is worked on by these six principles. That is the six principles I have said. That is your environmental policy, planning, implementation, study and correct, management review, and continuous improvement. Okay. Now, according to the ISO 14000, basis on environmental management system, these are the some key principles or important principles of the environmental management in mind. The first thing is to encompass environmental management system and the environmental aspects of the products. Encompass means to surround and have hold within that thing, within that environmental management system. So the first objective of this environmental management system on the base with respect to the ISO 14000 is your to encompass environmental management system and the environmental aspect of the products. Then to not be restricted by country or region, that this management system is not restricted to a particular country, it should be globally. To uphold and promote public interest as well as interest of those who use and be affected by the standards. That means we have to promote, we have to uphold and promote that public. What is the interest, what is the public interest, what is the demand of the public actually, based on according to that we have to set up the protocols also. Then to be cost efficient, robust, and adapt to many different needs, requirements, and circumstances at any scale globally. Next objective of this environmental management system with respect to ISO 14000 is, as a part of their flexibility means it is not like much strict, but it is internally as well as externally it is affecting to be suitable for internal as well as for external verification. Then to utilize scientific evidence and principle, not only that, we have to provide scientific evidence and principle, and continuously improve upon existing principle of environmental management according to the previous principles of environmental management. We have to work on it continually and to be actionable, practical, and useful for organizations using them. So these are some important, you can say, objectives of the environmental management based on with respect to the ISO 14000 standardization. Okay, next is your the plan, do, study, act. This is the main motto of the ISO 14000. So the main basis of the ISO 14000 is based on plan, do, study, act, or PDSA methodology. Okay, now this plan, do, study, act is based on ISO 14001 standard. Previously it was plan, do, check, act, cycle. It is the upgradation of the ISO 14000 which is implemented, which is stated in ISO 14001. First is plan. Yes, we have to plan it. We have to establish clear objectives and outline of all processes required. What are the things we require to improve the environment with respect to that company? This stage will typically include initial review or gap analysis to better understand the existing state of the organization, and will plan accordingly to it. So the first stage is to be planned, to establish clear objectives, to establish the outline of all processes that to be needed to manage the environment. And this stage will require by initial review or gap analysis, better to understand the existing state of the organization, and will plan accordingly to it. Second is it is I am not going, I am skipping a little bit because already it's become time. Second is do. You can write only up to this one. This is the main objective of the plan actually. Okay, second is do. Do means to put that plan into effect, implement, actually to put that plan into action by implementing the process. By putting the plan into action, we are implementing, we are making that work into effect. It is saying that it involves assigning work, including who is responsible for what within the EMS is written. Communication is especially important at this stage across all the areas of the organization. Now here communication is very important. To put that plan into effect, we have to communicate. All employees of the organization should be actively involved in this stage. Now here in this second step, that is do, here all the employees should be involved, should be actively involved in maintaining the EMS, in maintaining the environmental management system. Then comes study. In study, it is a stage 3. It is actually to observe how the EMS function while measuring and monitoring the process and report the results of overall performance. So in third step, that is study, we actually observe how the EMS is functioning in that company, in that organization. While measuring also, we are monitoring the process and report the results of overall performance. Now at this stage we will do auditing also, environmental auditing, both in internal and external, to check that how EMS is performing and better inform in the next step. Next is act. In act, which is stage 4, it is based on what you observe in the previous stage and take corrective action to improve that thing and optimize performance of the environmental management system. because ISO 14000 is purely based on environmental management system. I have said repeatedly. So in the fourth stage, which is called act, we were to act means to work. Here we have to work by making some corrective action, that how to improve and optimize the performance of our environmental management system based on this company. Now this is like re-implementation step. That means we are again putting that plan into effect by studying, where findings and recommended optimization from the previous stage will be put into action. So it is a like a re-implementation. We are studying and we are checking that mistakes that we have made, and we try to rectify that mistakes. We make that correct actions to be done, and again we are implementing that actions. Okay, now ISO 14000 is a family of environmental standards, and under it there are many other environmental standards as well, like ISO 14001, like ISO 14004. If I see in ISO 14004 what it is mentioned in ISO 14004, ISO 14004 set up general guidelines on principles, systems, and support techniques. What are the principles of environmental management system, what systems we should maintain, and what support techniques are there. Like in ISO 14006 also, it shows guidelines for incorporating eco design. Eco design means to set up a design for the welfare of the environment, anything based on the company. ISO 14015 shows environmental assessment of sites and organization. In short, we say EASO, environmental assessment of sites and organization. Then comes 14020. In 14020, it shows environmental labels and declarations. In ISO 14031, it shows environmental performance evaluation. Now, these are all big standards which has to be followed. Okay, like this is a very easy one. ISO 14064. ISO 14064 describes about the greenhouse gas fully. It shows about the greenhouse gas and how we to implement it. ISO 19011. This is different from ISO 14000, but ISO for 19011 comes under ISO 14000. It shows the guideline for auditing the management system. Right, so these are different families, I can say, subfamilies of the ISO 14000 guidelines that has been mentioned here. So that's all for today's lecture. Okay, I hope you have understood what I have said. Go for this part, that what are the importance of ISO 14000. It's the same thing that has been mentioned here. It is very easy, it has been said, and I hope you will able to understand it. Okay,